Well, hey there. It is Tuesday night in Los Angeles at 7 o'clock. Welcome to Mainstream Metaphysics. I'm Nick Newmont, and this is Audrey Newmont.
Hello.
And it's always this sort of glitch when we go on Facebook Live. It looks like we're live, and then it glitches, and there we are, and it catches us off like that. So I guess we'll get that down and right at some point in time. So, welcome to a very blustery Los Angeles. I know some of you in other parts of the country are experiencing much colder weather than this, but it is not uh, exactly 85 degrees like it was a week ago. And actually, that was too early to be that warm anyway. But the winds are blowing, and it's cloudy, and it looks like the part of the black and white scene of the Wizard of Oz on the farm, and people yelling Dorothy, Dorothy.
Where do you come up with this stuff?
That's what they were yelling for Dorothy. No, today at practice on the softball field, it was windy, and it was definitely affecting the flight of the ball.
Any
And
home runs hit today?
well, it was practice, and yes, yeah, that those girls can hit, both varsity and JV. They can hit. We have a game tomorrow, and the conditions. We're playing at home tomorrow in Westlake, and the conditions seem like they are going to be very similar to today. So,
So good for a win.
uh, yeah, a win, WIND, win D. It'll be a windy day.
So I don't know how many of you saw our post this
Yeah,
morning.
I
I
knew you were
woke
going
up
there.
with the 2 2 or 2 22 22, and he writes back, it's Tuesday, like
T W O
TWO.
S D A Y. It's
This is what I
Tuesday.
live with on a
Yes.
regular basis. It's never a dull moment. My father was a punster, and I have married somebody
For
who
22 years.
matches that. Yeah, for
22
22
years.
years.
Uh huh. See,
That's right. This year we're at 22 years.
that's right. Yep, coming up on it, married 22 years. Since you brought that up, Audrey, there are so many things when it comes to numbers, statistics, all of that can be manipulated to mean something. And I've had people writing to me about this, February 22nd, 2022, and everybody is playing it off as like these 22, and when people are asking what does that mean, well, first of all, when you do numerology in its purest form, and what the day represents, you're literally adding the month and the day, which is the 22nd, and then you take 2022, which is 2022,
Mm-hmm.
that adds across to 6. So 6 and 2, February is 8, and 22 is 30. So 30 over 3 day means like a lot of drama with people. And a lot of people out there that are peripheral followers of numbers. Like people always say, oh, I always see 1111, or I'll see 333. A lot of times that is a coincidence, and we sort of lock in on that. We have a clock, a metaphysical clock inside of us, and we have a tendency to be aware, consciously, subconsciously, of when these numbers show up.
Right.
But there's I read a lot of different things of what are said about numbers, and when it all comes down to it, unless today is your birthday, and a lot of people have a birthday today, that the numbers really don't mean what they're manipulated to come out as.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's really it. And when you do numerology, you have the day. Like for instance, everybody has a personal day. Like today is a 30 over 3 day for the entire planet. All right. But then, like for instance, like your birthday is October 13th, and you're still in your 2021 cycle. So we would take 10 and 13, which is 23, and 2021 adds up to 5.
2022.
No, 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 you're still in your 2021 cycle.
Oh,
You haven't had your birthday yet
okay.
in 2021. So that's all right.
That's
So
good to
if
know.
if you have had your birthday already, including up to today, then you add 2022, which adds up to 6 to your birthday. But if you haven't had your birthday yet, your personal year cycle is still based on
21.
your 2021.
I get
And
it.
and there are amateur numerologists that, and I've had people take my classes, and come in and say that automatically, as soon as we hit January 1, that everyone's in that year cycle. And that is not true. You're Not everyone is based on January 1, unless your birthday is January 1. So, so where we are, as I was saying, um, we go to you as you're in a 28 over 1 cycle,
Mm-hmm.
and the month of February is a 2, and 2 and 28 is 30. What it means that you can have a lot of ups and downs, a lot of drama with people. Okay?
No.
Yeah, never. And so in numerology, whenever the numbers 1 through 9 are considered man's numbers, they relate to the physical being and all the aspects of life that we're involved in. But 0 is the eternal ring. It's referred to as God's number, the all or none. And so when 0 comes into play, when we're talking about numerology, and 3, like for instance, 3 represents people, it's the all or none of people, the all or none of communication. And 3 represents expressed artistic aspects, so drama, theatrics, things like that. So for you, you're in a 30 over 3 month, so it had a lot of all or none with people, which can make you at times very busy and at times very flat. And then today, if we bring uh, Kirby writes, my period starts March 8th. I didn't know Kirby was still having periods.
I was going to say your buddy's in the house. Hi, Kirby.
Hi, Kirby. Kirby's going to turn 67. He's a few months older than me. I thought he was too old to have periods. Um, he wrote, my period starts March 8th.
Is that his birthday, March 8th?
Ask him.
Is that your birthday, March 8th?
So when you put today as 22, and we were saying you're in a 30 over 3 month, and 30 and 22 is 52, which means that 52/7 can put you in sort of a mood swing, so to speak. That's your personal day.
I haven't been moody, though. It's been good.
No. But then tomorrow you're in a 53 over 8 day, which be good for money management, things of that nature.
There's going to be some managing going on, yes.
So anyway, it's how you do the numbers according to numerology. But look, even people that work with numbers know statistics can be viewed all kinds of different ways. Uh, I mean, statistics are viewed different ways when it comes to sports. And right now, analytics is very big in how they put teams together, all sports teams. I mean, numbers, numbers, numbers. So, and speaking of numbers, the predictions I made for the Super Bowl, if you want to watch that, it's about 8.5 minutes. It's up on my Facebook page if you want to look at it.
Yeah, you did a good job with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was fun doing that. And I look back, as I've said before, when I'm making global predictions like that, it's kind of like, phew, because my reputation's on the line, and quite frankly, I enjoy doing personal readings for people as opposed to global stuff like that. I was approached years ago by one of the tabloids to write for them, and I turned it down. And the guy said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, because if I'm right, then it, especially kind of stuff they want written about." I said, "Sure, it makes me look good, but what's it do for the people? And if I'm wrong, then it just gets a lot of people fear-based." So I said, "Thank you, but I don't want to write for a tabloid." I felt that that's not within integrity to do that. I mean, it would get you publicity.
Yeah, but when you're doing this for people, you're doing it from a point of constructive, you know.
Exactly.
Really showing them here's some hard lines that can come up and here's how you navigate them. That's the cool thing about having somebody like Nick doing your readings. Like people go in for a reading, but they're also getting that part of him that is a therapist. There's also that part of him that's predictive, that psychic part. You're really getting a full out understanding of how to move forward in a way that is intentional.
Well, in the years that being a psychic, being a hypnotherapist, and being a healer, there's a lot more about how do we get people in the right direction, because there's a lot of psychics that are very fatalistic, and I've been to them, and And it's like you can walk away from a reading feeling like you're screwed.
I have had
And
many people I've had to help after having readings. Somebody just recently was saying that, somebody had told them years ago that, I don't know, something horrible, like they wouldn't amount to much, or whatever it
yeah,
was. And, that was a belief that this person took on. And it's our job to, hers and mine, to see the belief and then now counteract it and own something new. So, be very cautious about going to fortune tellers and things like that.
no,
And
I call them the storefront gypsies
yeah, those storefront
with the
gypsies.
big neon palm in the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I went, long before I met you, I went to this woman and she was like that. And she started going into that nonsense. She was referring to my ex wife. And this is when I was going through divorce or coming out of it. And she started that nonsense about if I pay her so much money, she would remove the curse that my ex wife had put on me. And I looked at her right in the eyes and I said, no, I had a Beverly Hills attorney remove that curse. And she laughed and she knew that it was time for her to back off.
I had a client that got deep with that.
I
She
know
was
you did.
paying that person for a lot of money,
Yep,
and it's not a good thing. So that is Kirby's birthday. We're gonna have to remember
we will
March
remember
8th.
that.
Yeah.
Now, we're on a track, and it's amazing how, when we're doing the show, how we can segue. So let's talk about something that you and I have alluded to. In fact, the other day, when my good friend was here that I worked on, he and I went to lunch, and we got into a conversation that's, and this is where this is going to go. And so Audrey and I have talked about, and it's been brought up, through the decades of the misconception of metaphysical people claiming or presenting themselves that they are spiritual.
Ah, yes.
Okay? And this is really fascinating. Now, when it comes to, like, first of all, myself, I'm a metaphysician, all right? And I have spiritual beliefs, but I don't tout myself as being overly spiritual. In fact, when I've been asked to do certain radio and television shows, and Audrey's heard me say this, I said, look, but, I'm a real person. I'm a father, a husband, I coach softball. I like to make martinis. We entertain. I literally said, I'm not a toga sandal wearing granola eater. So please don't expect the Dalai Lama because that's not who I am. I am a real guy. In fact, when you get into the concept of spirituality, Audrey's actually more spiritual than I am. All right? And and a lot of times people mistake psychics for being spiritual. Now that doesn't mean a psychic can't be a spiritual person, but for the general public that watches us, there is sort of a ladder or a totem pole of climbing in life, referenced at times in the Tree of Life in Kabbalah, and just doing psychic work, even though there is a gift to that, that doesn't mean the person is necessarily spiritual.
Right.
When people are in higher meditation frequently and in higher contemplation and live their life, you know, in an inspired way, and especially in how they treat people, that is more of a spiritual person. Now, let's bring another spice into this conversation religion, all right? A person could go to church every day or go to synagogue every day or temple, and that doesn't mean they're necessarily a spiritual person. Just because a person is prays every day or does whatever they do, that doesn't make them spiritual. That's communal practice. But it doesn't mean also that a spiritual person can't practice a certain kind of religion because they're comfortable in that community.
Right.
So, and then you bring into philosophy, okay, studying ancient philosophies like Greek philosophers, Rumi, there's all these great written things that a person can read and be inspired by that. And so if you're spiritual, meaning you're really in touch with spirit, It means that you're living your life according to truth, and you're also not doing things out of fear. And I have known plenty of people, especially in the last couple of years, that tout themselves a certain way and were so fear based. Well, if a person is spiritual, they don't have that kind of fear.
Right.
They may take precautions, they may do things. They're not going around bad mouthing the parties on the other side of the fence because they don't need to do that. They're comfortable where they are.
Right.
So this brings about interesting conversations and interesting dialogues, and in all of it, we stay out of judgment because we have to know who we are, not who someone else is. And years ago, when Audrey started studying with me in the early months of meeting Audrey, there was and our friend, um, we talked about this individual the other day of what a tragic case this was, not talking about her like that, okay? And so what happened was when Audrey and this group of people were in class studying Energy Healing 101, there was a woman in the group who had gotten on this path that she deemed as spiritual, but it was very kabbalistic, okay, and she had done a lot of converting deeper into Judaism, and the study of all that is really fascinating, and it's really fascinating to hear it and understand it on a deeper level. So what happened was this individual, uh, you know, was on this path, which by intention was a good path, but her her husband, which became her ex-husband, was not going on that path with her, was not interested, because sometimes when people get into something, and no matter how good it is, they have a tendency to be a little fanatical about it. Okay?
I certainly have been there, done that.
Sure, sure. When we're really interested in something, we dive in. And there's a lot of things like this where it's a lot of times you don't put your toe in the water. You're just going to go right in. So what happened with that was her response to him, and I won't be as vulgar as she was, but there was a big, F you to him. If you're not on this with me, we're going, separate ways. And they did. She even changed her name to a Hebrew name, not her given, English sounding name. And then when she came and studied, she asked me before the rest of the group got there, and I knew she was coming from judgment. So I baited her, and she said, "Do you see yourself as spiritual?" Well, that is a very personal question, and not something I would go and ask someone. But when she asked me, I said, "Oh, very." And I did that on purpose because I just got done sharing with you. I don't see myself as this deeply spiritual, you know, Dalai Lama. And she's like, huh, it's interesting how people see themselves. And she was loaded with judgment. And tragically, what happened was stomach cancer consumed her, and she passed away a number of years ago. And so to sit in judgment of people, and my friend shared more about the past with the marriage because he knew them. It's really fascinating, and so if we're going to judge on that level, then the person is not spiritual,
Right.
because when you have to criticize people like that or judge them like that, there is, and this is more your expertise, Audrey, there is some kind of fear-based thought form that is deeply inside of them. Do you want to?
Well, it's come up in session. I can't even explain to you how many times somebody will be looking at somebody else and they're judging them, and it's a mirror for us. So when you're doing a practice of really holding it in the highest, what you do is when you catch yourself, and it's a catching yourself. So there's a feeling that goes behind the judgment. So
Mhm.
when you catch yourself with that challenging feeling, there's a part where you step back at the judgment of another person, and you're always continuously bringing it back to yourself. And that has been where some of the most amazing insights have been with clients. So rather than keep pointing the finger in the other direction, you're
Right.
bringing it back to yourself, but with compassion and with understanding. And it's really interesting when they see it within themselves and they transform it. They don't keep creating the same kind of relationships and that same kind of drama. It's a fascinating thing.
It is. It really is.
It's fun to
And
watch.
oh
It's
yeah.
funny that you said the thing about stomach. I had somebody in today who, has challenges with the stomach, and I have that book, that Metaphysical Anatomy. I'm reading that
Mhm.
book to this client, and they're just like, "Oh my God!" And it's like it shows you when your body has those physical
Where
things.
is that book?
It's over on the other side of the couch where
Okay.
I can just grab it when I'm working with my clients. It's amazing how many we should have a night where we just do that kind of stuff and have people call in and say,
So,
you know what,
yeah.
I've got
What's
an
your
issue.
ailment?
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll have a, in fact, maybe next show we'll do it. So we'll have What's Your Ailment show, and we'll read parts of that book. And it's just, I can't even express to you enough how many times my clients have been, what are you looking at over there?
Said something about internet connection was
Oh, it
restored.
sometimes does that, but it's
Okay.
still on. See, we have it right here.
All right.
At any rate, it's an interesting thing to do. So we'll do that next week. So
Okay.
start thinking about what ails you. So
That's
what's
funny.
all this?
Well, wait a minute. Let's. Um, the other thing is that when we were still on um, LA Talk Radio, and there was a guest that we had and was talking about things about humans, and this individual said, "Well, people are stupid," and that person has never been on the show again. So,
All right, so I was just on a show recently. In fact, you can look on my Facebook page. I highly recommend watching it. It was Dr. Tony O'Donnell and Katie Wyman Norris, and then there was this other woman, Diane Miller, who is with she's an attorney. She was amazing. So she does more like constitutional law. And there was a part that Tony and I had talked about before the show where there's a lot of people out there that saying, people are stupid because they're doing this or that. And that's one of my pet peeves, and it's super important to get. It's not that people are stupid in any way, shape, or form. It is that they're unaware. They're literally ignorant to whatever the
yeah,
thing is, or in their cognitive dissonance. And excuse me, what was that? It happens
it's a little
sometimes.
animal in there.
It's a
Whoop,
little critter.
whoop.
So it's important, that part too. You brought it up. So it's
Sounds like you just brought it
I know.
up.
What is that?
A lot of air, just you talking and just air.
I know.
Whoop.
It's like my little alter ego coming out.
That's funny. So anyway, it's like, look, when it comes to what people believe, and how many times have people that are more deeply into their religion and want to criticize people that don't subscribe to, you know, religion in a certain way. And I've said to people, through the years that, if you're so comfortable and so solid in what you believe, then why do you have to criticize me or someone else's? You know, I remember when I was doing, before I met you, when I was doing that radio show 5 nights a week on the Psychic Friends network, and I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even part of them, but I was doing that. So we had a woman call in. Folks, it was 4 hours, from 7 to 11, Monday through Friday night. I was on the radio on this show that it didn't air in Los Angeles, unfortunately, but up and down the East Coast and the South. Oh, we had a following for a while. So this woman who was of religious nature, obviously, um, she was criticizing, and we were talking about healing, and starting to throw out the devil card. That we're not supposed to be doing that. That kind of stuff. That's all fear based, and it's like, geez. And we were talking about channeling, and how bad that was. Okay, So I said to this woman, I said, look, so um, who wrote the gospel? And she's like, well, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I said, okay. I said, well, how did they do that? And she goes, well, God talked through them. And I said, oh, so they channeled. She hung up the phone so fast.
It would have been interesting had you just allowed Merlin to come in at that moment.
Yeah.
Were you
So
channeling Merlin then?
yes, yes. I had been channeling. I started channeling Merlin, shortly before that, like 96, 97 in there. And
Hmm.
that was 97, 98 that we were doing that show. So anyway, yep, yep, yep. It's funny where people's fears allow them to go to, and it's
Yeah,
just
but again, when you're in a spiritual practice, there's a part of it where you just don't attach to it. It's just their business, that's their thing, and you just love them anyway.
right. And you know, and when you, even though you are in a spiritual practice or a metaphysical practice, it doesn't mean you don't have your own emotions or things like that.
Got
Like for
plenty of them.
instance, um, like sometimes people think that because we do this, that they can do whatever they want to do, and we're not going to address that. Like you're going to get slapped in the face and you just turn the other cheek. And
Oh, I'm
remember,
the first to address it.
yeah,
If
and
something happens and people are thinking they're just going to slide it by, occasionally I don't have a reason to say something about it, and it just is what it is. But if the person is valuable in my life, if there is, this thing that's important for me, I will absolutely address it. Some people, it's just like it's time for them to go, and that's okay. I love them, and you know what? I get it. It's not a match anymore, or whatever that is. But sometimes it's like it's important for whatever the reason. I mean, it could be a wide variety of them, but it's super important to really own your word.
right, yeah, and sometimes people do a spiritual bypass in the form of, well, I can't do this. I'm too sensitive. I can't deal with this, and they avoid confrontation, or avoid, taking responsibility for their actions and things like that.
And I have to say, in session, that's a big one. It's amazing how many people do a spiritual bypass. I've
Well,
got my little notebook, which is running around here somewhere, and I
well,
mean, I'm constantly, that's a bypass. That right there, that's a bypass. And when they understand it, and then they own their word and they own their feelings and they address the issue, it's almost like the person's going from wherever they're at in kind of like a low place, and they move over here. When they own and they understand what the bypass is and they own the ability to deal with the things, it's like they go whew. I mean, it's just amazing how fast people grow when that happens.
right.
And it's fun to watch.
It is fun to watch, and but when you own your truth, it's okay to say whatever's on your mind.
Yeah.
And again, not being judgmental, not lambasting people. It's just, if a person's going to claim themselves as that, then live that.
Right.
Don't say this and do this. Pot kettle.
Right.
Anyway, it's fascinating stuff. And look, when it comes to we in this physical body as humans and this search for spirituality, it's really like the universe's trick, because we want to be more than we are, okay? And we want to ascend, and we know that we're going to leave this physical form and go into a non physical form that we would like to be evolved in some way, shape, or form. So, but we are human, and we go through the pitfalls of what humans do, how we think, how we feel, how we eat, how we survive. That's all part of, in fact, as metaphysical as the seven basic chakras are, they relate to the aspects of life that are real and genuine and what we do. So, that's part of the evidence of how the soul and the body are connected.
Right.
That energy field, and everybody is different. So Merlin explained a lot of this stuff to me a long time ago. That is this quest that we have, and just when you think that you're there, you're not there. Like you know, and even if you are a really good metaphysician, or you're deep into philosophies and you're growing, and Merlin told me like 20 years ago that no matter how advanced your studies are and what you perform, that if you don't keep growing beyond what you've learned, what you know, at that moment you've invented dogma, you've invented religion.
Right.
And he said it's the trick that the non-physical realm plays on physicals. That it's like you've got it, I've got it, I've got it, and you just have to keep going and keep getting it and keep getting it, no matter how advanced your metaphysical abilities are.
But there's a simple way to figure it out. There's just this way simple figuring out in life of do you got it or not. And that's why I like the way that I put my tools together. It's like if you're having a moment where you're in fear feelings, you haven't got it. It's like there's something
That's
to
right.
learn. If you're anxious, angry, stressed, worried, anything that falls in that fear side, there's your little lesson to learn. And it could be a quick, simple, easy to get lesson, or it could be something that's a big deal, something to really figure it out. And the other trick is if you're pointing at the other person and they did something that made you feel whatever, nope, you always bring it back to you. So just those two things alone are key to continuing the evolution, your conscious evolution, you know,
Sure.
evolution of your consciousness.
Well, and Merlin told me many years ago too that, like, say we get into an argument with someone, and both parties are trying to make their point. He explained that what's more important than trying to convince the other party, that you're right or what you know. He said, what's more important is, do you know what you're talking about? Do you know your truth?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, really take a look at how much energy and effort has to go into convincing someone of what your opinion is or what you believe the facts to be.
And I'll tell you what Golden Arrow said, as long as we're saying what
Yes,
Merlin
please.
said. I had something recently, and there's a part of it where when you are in a struggle with somebody, a lot of times that person just wants to be heard. Hear the other person instead of trying to continually put your stuff out there. Literally step back and hear them and let them feel like they're heard. Well, definitely know that they're heard. And that changes the dynamic with things. A lot of times people get upset because it's just simply that I, I keep getting upset with you because you're not hearing me. So truly hear them and find that middle ground. That's a big, big part of it too.
Right. And when we were in, well, I think you said it well. That you know, well, when I've been this, I'll say it like this: when I've done readings for people, and it's something that's of a deeper nature, there's so many times it's as if what I've told them bounced off the wall and came back to me. It's like I needed to hear that too.
That happens all the time. We all have to grow.
Right.
Nick and I
Right.
are growing with everybody else. I mean, it's just like nobody's there. Nobody's at that pinnacle.
I was talking with Kirby this morning. Yes, Kirby, bring you in the conversation, and he was really complimenting us and what we do, and so on and so forth. And I said that as that conversation segued, that and of course he knew me way back when I lived in Pennsylvania, and how much I've changed and what I've become, but he knows within how he knew me that I'm still that person too. And so I said that when it comes to Audrey and myself, that we are an acquired taste, and in what we do is an occupational hazard, and it'd be very difficult for Audrey or me to really go through the effort of trying to match up with someone else because of what we present and the threat that that presents. And I'm really grateful to have Audrey, as my wife, because I know I'm not an easy person to match up with. What? What?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, seriously, and
Oh, I
before,
think a lot of people are intimidated by you.
oh, yes, all 5'7" of me. Um,
No, I've
but
had people tell me stuff, and it's like he's actually a really, really nice guy because you come across as, whatever.
well, look, I'm intense, and when I thank you, Bridget. When I worked
Hi,
for Saks
Bridget.
Fifth Avenue, and when I'm on focused and doing what I'm needing to do, my I'm very intense. And one time I walked into the executive offices and one of the secretaries was on the phone with New York and she said, I heard her say, the I have to get off the phone. The most intense manager in the entire building just walked in.
That's funny.
But what I'm saying is, uh,
And Bridget literally just said here that she was scared of you.
yeah,
You know what a lot of people are? I don't know what it is because he's truly one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. But there is that part of him. It's like people are like, oh.
and you know what's funny in coaching the girls in the JV team, you know, those girls, and I say this, those girls love me, okay? And it's how I present myself. And I'm very easygoing. Even the other day when we were not having a good game, I'm very chill with it, you know?
You've learned to be that way. He didn't always be so chill. So again, we're all growing and we're all
Well,
figuring it out. Did something
because
just fly by the screen there?
I don't know.
It was very
But,
strange.
but, you know,
He is sweet and caring and amazing.
my early mentors in coaching girls softball were more hot,
In my hands.
more dramatic and hot-headed guys. And I had to learn to
It's funny, Kirby.
take some guidance from some other styles of coaching. That's where that was. Um, anyway, so what I was saying is that, and in the 9 years that I was single before meeting Audrey, my occupation was a hazard, and so dating women, they either were scared to death of me because being psychic, and like, what are you going to know about me? Well, what do you have to hide? And then the other thing is or they want to act like clients.
Yeah,
They
right.
want me to read for them and stuff like that. And, that doesn't work. So, and Audrey is very intense too about how she goes about things. And you can see her hand gestures. And when you watch her show on Thursday night and it's just her face right there, you can see how she is. And when she's something important, her eyebrows go up
No, not
and
these.
all that.
You know
The
what somebody told
caterpillars.
me one time? They said, "Oh my God, your eyebrows are like two caterpillars running across your face." I was like, "What? Is that a compliment? I don't think so."
Yeah, I know.
So that's why a
But
lot of times I got the bangs rolling. The caterpillars are in in hiding.
and look, Audrey and I are very eclectic of who we are, and we both are, and I mean this in a really funny way. We have our own little quirks and stuff like that, and we're very used to each other though. And numerologically, we're both number 5 personalities, which means we need our independence and freedom. But 5 and 5 is 10 is one, and two fives are actually good because they unite as one. Okay, but we just don't step on each other's toes. Audrey wants to go camping, go, go do whatever. We neither one of us could be with a wet blanket.
No,
Okay,
not a needy.
Kirby, Audrey, intense. You think? Um, I'm going to tell one more funny story, then we're going to get into the money thing tonight. So, Kirby and I reminisce at times. And do you remember so and so? You remember so and so? And anybody that's old enough and remembers high school. So, Kirby brought up a name that hadn't come up in conversation in a long time. And this individual was at my high school, uh, was in the band. And I have to tell you that, and Audrey knows this, if you've ever watched the very first American Pie movie with Allison, what's her name, that plays Michelle, the redhead, and she would always say, "And this one time at band camp." Well, when I saw that movie in the theater, I almost spit my drink and fell on the floor because bandies, is what they're called, have a tendency to be sort of good, and they do go off to a band camp, and their pranks are something that like a little kid would do, thinking it's not like you know it's not like hazing like it goes on in college fraternities, sororities. It's nothing like that. And so this guy that Kirby was referring to, he's talking about him, and this, he was in my homeroom, not Kirby, this other guy. My God. And he's sitting there, and he was this perfect hair, and he did come from a richer part of town. It was all that very preppy kind of.
Yeah.
And he said, and I heard the conversation. He said, and this one time at band camp, and so they really did talk like that. And there I am in the theater, and she says that, and it took me back like 20 years.
That movie, when it first came out, I'm telling you, my friends and I, we saw that movie. I literally did laugh so hard I fell out of my chair. It was so funny. That's one of the funniest movies when you first see it the first time ever. I mean, can you all relate? Write in the comments. I mean, it's like,
Oh my God.
oh,
Where are we going with this? Anyway,
no. I don't
anyway,
even know how we're
so
talking about this.
it's just fun to, one thing about Audrey and myself is that we do what we do, and we're also very, very human, and we are very approachable. And
Just
you know,
really quick, they had another one of those movies. There was a scene in it. It had to do with animals or whatever.
all right,
And they were opening the door. We laughed
silhouette.
so hard. We
Yes.
kept replaying it and
Right, we did.
crying laughing. That was so funny.
So
Anyway,
I guess I can do the glasses. My God, she knows what I'm talking about.
all right, on to the stuff.
Okay.
This is what you've waited all this time with us just rambling on. Now you're going to get it.
Sometimes the show just needs to be fun and funny. It really does. Welcome to Mainstream Metaphysics. So the Pluto return in the chart of the United States of America, this event that happens roughly 247, 248 years. At this point in society, we don't live that long, but I'm not putting it past us to live, as time goes on, a very long
Oh,
time.
yeah.
So the actual Pluto return occurred on the 20th at 11:49 a.m. in Philadelphia, East Coast time, keeping with, the purity of the chart. And the funny thing is that, and you can have any kind of, around your birthday, you have your solar return. 13 times a year, you have a lunar return where the moon eclipses the moon.
Your Saturn return, that's a
Which
big one.
every 29 and a half years. A Jupiter return is every 12 years. A Uranus return is every 84 years. These are all important. Neptune's another one. Neptune is about 140 years, roughly, to have a Neptune return. But the Pluto return has been talked about by many an astrologer for some time now, because the Pluto in the natal chart of the United States is in the house of finance. So not only did I print the transits to illustrate that, but I also printed the Pluto return chart, which is a thematic thing that the United States would feel for the next 248 years. All right? And the irony of this chart, and again, you can look at so many different things, is that Pluto in the Pluto return chart is in the 8th house, which is the Pluto Scorpio house, which means this has a massive effect on how money is gained and lost via investments. So we are going through a major tear down and rebuilding that isn't just 2022, but investments and all the vehicles that you get into will not look the same. Now, of course, there are going to be stocks, okay? But this means that Pluto tears down and rebuilds, death and rebirth. Pluto is the phoenix bird. It keeps coming back to life. And so in this time frame, and the longer people are on the planet, like if we have any viewers that are say 18 years old and are interested in the stock market, they'll hear this and know that when they get to like my age or Audrey's age, how much more they're going to see about how this is going to unfold. It's a major, major, major um, rebuilding of investments and so on and so forth. Um, again, this is in the chart of the
So
United States.
So I'm just going to point out something. So just with investments, as an example, Nick and I just got into this thing how many months ago?
June 29th, we got into Hyperfund.
So we got into this thing called a hyper fund, and we put $1,000 into it. So
Right.
whenever you're investing in something like this, it's super important to invest what you don't mind losing in case it's something
Right.
that turns into a bit of a dud. So we put 1,000 into it that many months ago. It's now worth,
$29,000.
and we're also taking out 5,000
Right.
at the moment, and we still have the,
About 24,000.
yeah, and that's how many months ago we put it in.
June 29th.
So that's an example of that's a
8
way
months.
to invest your money differently. This is not something in our lifetime we've ever seen,
No.
and so it's really working for us. So there's that way of investing. There's another thing called the XRP. That's another new way of investing that people are looking into. So there's all these different avenues of making
See-
money that are not the usual way.
See, with the Pluto event in the finances of the country, what people have to understand, and I try to say this is in the best English that I can, finance is being reinvented. When we refer to Pluto as death and rebirth, it doesn't mean things are going to crumble down. It means that there is it's sort of like an end of an era and something new comes forward. That's what it is. And everything faces that. There's always going to be where something comes to an end. Um, yes, and someone wrote a comment, it also has to do with how people earn their money. Yes, that's true too, because there's so many different ways. Look how many different jobs have been invented in the last 20 years. Look how people are able to make money off of just having a YouTube presence. Okay?
That's a huge one, and referring people. I mean, I've
Right.
got a partner that I refer because I truly value what they do, and they give me money for referring. I mean, it's like found money. So
Right.
there's all these different avenues. So when you say, anything about making money, that's why it's important to leave it open. Money comes to me from known and unknown sources.
Well, and when we say that what you just said, a lot of people are caught up in earning money. And I remember when The Secret came out, and Bob Proctor, who was one of the older gentlemen on there, talked about, working harder doesn't make you more money.
Right,
It's like multiple streams of income will make you more money,
right.
and how we're able to diversify. But when you say making money as opposed to earning money, that's really fascinating, because that brings about the vision of, like, you've got in you a printing press. You're making money.
Never thought about that term. You're right.
And
Earning
I
it.
never have either until that really hit me. You said making money. And like, for instance, and you've seen Carmen on our show, who is very prolific with the mental bank ledger. And, I do the mental bank every night before I go to bed, no matter how tired I am, right? So, these are vehicles that make the mind go. And even when I'm writing those things, I may not be thinking about, like, what do I have to do tomorrow and how am I going to invent money, but it's working on me, and it's causing a mind expansion, and sure enough, more things come.
So Bridget said working smarter. So when you're doing that mental bank and you're writing all of that in there, you're literally making it so your mind is working smarter,
Right,
so that we're
right.
not efforting it. We're just literally, you're inputting a program.
Now, when it comes to
Hey, Jen.
the phraseology of making money, and this hyper fund that we're in, It's not cryptocurrency. It's based on multiple funds that come together. Blockchain is one of them. And so we that are more up in years, so to speak, we can be more traditional, and it's not what we're used to, and we can become fearful about that because, well, is it too good to be true and all that, and I knew psychically and everything, and even Merlin told me that that was a good thing to do. So we who are more mature, and when I say that, I'm saying like 40s and older, you know, it's really important that we're more open minded to how money can be made, money can be earned, okay, and how money can be invested. Because we're, first of all, we're in the Aquarian age, which means anything can happen at any time in any way. You know, the Aquarian age is the most unpredictable age of all the 12 of ages that can be. And because the planet Uranus creates unexpected change, Uranus rules the weather. And the one thing that you can predict about Aquarius and Uranus is that it's unpredictable. Okay? Now this Pluto return, this event that just happened this week, because Pluto, you think about the sun goes around. The sun goes around a chart, you know, every year, okay? But Pluto moves a degree and a half a year. That's all, okay? That's all it moves. That is next to nothing. So what will happen is we just had the Pluto return, and then Pluto, I'm looking at the ephemeris, will retrograde in late April, and then we will get a reoccurrence of the Pluto return in all around July 12th, 13th of this year. What?
I just have to say this. I'm sorry.
The ephemeris?
Look at this. Who
That's
can read this shit? Okay. I have no numbers in my name, and I look at that and I'm like, oh, I can't even go there.
right. Yeah. Well,
So I'm always blown away when he
look,
pulls this thing
I
out. I'm
know
like, I can't even figure it out. No.
it's like a farmer's almanac for astrologers.
Right?
Okay. And I know where the planets are at all time because I'm doing readings all the time. You know, and I know that Saturn right now is in the mid-teens of Aquarius. You know, Jupiter is around 8, 9 degrees of Pisces right
All right,
now.
get back to Pluto.
Okay. All right. So I'm just saying is I don't have to look at this every day. I have an approximation.
I just can't even understand it.
Okay, that's okay. You don't need to.
I
You have
know.
me.
Thank God.
Okay, thank God. And so then what happens is, we'll be here all week. Pluto will turn around and go direct motion on October the 8th of this year.
So wait, back it up a little bit. So when it retrogrades, does that mean that all the good stuff it slows down or stops? What does that mean exactly? Like when it retrogrades the first time in April?
Well, no, it doesn't mean that it stops. You know, when Pluto is retrograde, it means that we have to look at what we've been holding on to. What do we need? What do we need to release? Okay, there is a volatility to Pluto. All right. So then Pluto comes back. So this Pluto return that myself and every astrologer has put so much emphasis on, you know, in the chart of the United States, it hits it in July, and then it goes direct in October, and then there's a third passing of the Pluto return in, well, basically like 2, 3 days after Christmas. Okay? So this whole thing about the Pluto return, the bulk of 2022 is about this. Okay? And then as Pluto moves forward in 2023, and we catch another retrograde, and by the way, Pluto, you talk about evolving, in late March of 2023, Pluto leaves Capricorn and goes into Aquarius. You talk about humankind changes when Pluto goes into Aquarius. We're going to have very interesting conversations in the beginning of 2023 when we talk about Pluto leaving Capricorn and the coldness and the cruelness of Pluto in Capricorn going into Aquarius.
It's going to be kind and
Yes. And
yeah.
there's all kinds of stuff about Jupiter Neptune that we'll talk about in coming weeks.
So before we run out of time,
Hold on.
Bridget's saying, what is Pluto doing to us now?
Well, hold on one second.
All
So
right.
we get into another Pluto retrograde in 2023, which is May the 2nd of 2023. Then it backs up into Capricorn again, just when we thought we got a break. And then just as Pluto goes direct at 27 degrees 53 minutes of arc, it's very close to the Pluto return. Now, in October of 23, that is really the October, early November, the last, let's say, snippet of
Next year.
of next year, yes, of the this Pluto return energy that we've put so much emphasis on. So we have a lot to look at in 2022, not just February of 22, but in 2023 also with Pluto. And to answer that question, what is Pluto doing to us now? Well, Bridget, in the chart of the United States of America, the Pluto return means Pluto in the sky has landed upon Pluto in the chart in the finance house of the country, and that's an event. A Pluto return happens every 248 years. So this is a recreation and a demolition and reconstruction of the way finances are done in the United States of America. And we have seen this coming, you know,
Well,
for
we've
some
seen
time.
it coming in various ways. So there's a lot of people that are having a greater awareness of our finances in this country, and we're
Right,
understanding about the Federal Reserve. We're understanding about the IRS. We're having a greater awareness of what's legal and what's illegal. And so we're also having a greater awareness of what the fiat system is versus what is coming up is the quantum financial
right,
system.
right,
So instead of it being a fiat system that is based on nothing, there's nothing supporting it, there's no foundation, there's just making of money, making of money, making of
right,
money, and all these trillions of debt. What it's transitioning into, and I'm not sure exactly how that transition is actually going to physically happen, but the understanding is that it's transitioning from a fiat system into a quantum financial system
into a
that
real
actually has a foundation in gold
gold. That's right.
standard. So it's a very very big deal, and it looks like it's happening, and it also looks like there is a strong possibility. Again, I don't know when it's going to happen, but there is a revaluation of currency across the globe. So there's 209 countries that are literally re-establishing their currency, the value of the currency, and making it an even playing field for
Right,
the globe.
right.
So in that as well, there's a whole bunch of different things that will happen with that as well. So it's very much in alignment with what we're looking at astrologically and what we're seeing in a lot of various news.
And that revaluation is really and truly balancing out the imbalances from one country to another
Yeah.
in these, over 200 countries that are involved in this. This has been done before, a revaluation of certain currencies. It was done when Clinton was president, and but people didn't know that until after he was out because people couldn't figure out how he balanced the budget. Okay, and it was because of a revaluation of the Kuwaiti dinar, is what took place, and there is that is going to happen. The other thing is that, and this is a prediction I have, that probably will take place in 2023 once we're done with Pluto doing what it's doing, especially Pluto going into Aquarius, is you will probably see the end of the IRS as we know it.
Yeah, I have a strong feeling about that. Are you saying that revaluation looks like it would take place in 23?
No, I think that will take place in 22, uh, especially as Pluto moves closer to Aquarius. And before we, you know, jump off here, this movement of Pluto into Aquarius is just as significant as the Pluto return. And again, and it, Pluto goes into Aquarius in 23, but I think we will find that to happen in 22, especially with this Pluto return chart, where Pluto is transforming in the house of investments in the chart of the United States of America. So,
So, with that being said, it's 8 o'clock.
whew,
And we have to bid you a good night or a good day or whatever time you're watching this. So, lovely to have you all join us. And next week, like we said, join us. We're going to be doing body syndromes. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So, if you have something going on in your body and you want some answers about it, let us know. We'll look it up for you.
real quick before we go, we've got to say this. First of all, what are you doing Thursday night on Conscious Mind Tripping?
I don't know yet.
Okay. Then also, and we will make sure that anyone that's in our contact list knows this, we are postponing the relationship workshop and going to push it back a few weeks.
Yeah.
There's people have had just too much going on, and and that's what we're going to do. So if you didn't get that yet, the relationship workshop is going to be postponed this coming Saturday, and we'll create a new date to put that up. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, what we have coming up is my show on Thursday. The women's group, if you missed it, I'm going to be posting it on my new YouTube channel for it probably tomorrow. And it'll be again in 2 weeks. And we're going to start that group with the fabulous Mika Shoemaker. She'll be doing her
Breath
breath
work.
work. Oh, it's so good. And so that'll be the beginning of the women's group. So whether you're in person or on Zoom, it's going to be fantastic. We had a really great time this past week. So highly recommend that. It's going to be on March 6th. And
That's it.
that's it.
Okay. Thank you everyone for watching. This has been a fun show. And she is Audrey Newmont. I'm Nick Newmont. This has been Mainstream Metaphysics. And always remember, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you very soon. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Love you.